say how I feel. Ooh la la, ooh la la. It's kinda easy now cause it's real. It's like ooh la la, ooh la la. It ain't hard to say how I feel. It's like ooh la la, ooh la la. It's kinda easy now cause it's real. Gonna say how I feel, cause I know that it's something real. Gonna say how I feel, cause I know that it's something real. Hey, hey. Gonna say how I feel, cause I know that it's something real.
Tonight. It's good to have you here. It's been a day. I've been sitting down here moving files of photos and catching Super Bowl advertisements in between. The only time I went upstairs to watch anything was to watch that amazing halftime show, which was awesome. I loved it. I had a great time watching that, so that was fun to see. Fun to see old rappers and hip hop and all out there. I mean, Snoop Dogg is just cracks me up every time I watch him. So it was fun to see all that and see everybody having such a great time. But now we're here. It's story time. But yeah, I wasn't too much into the game this year. Not. Sometimes I have been, but not. Yeah, Angie is. I think she told me she was going to be at a Super Bowl party at her sister's. But yeah, sometimes I'm into the game. This year wasn't so much, and that's okay. The commercials I did see were somewhat funny. I did like the sloth one that he ate the stuff and moved really fast. That made me laugh. But let me know if the sound is not clear. I got a message that last night that it wasn't. Gail couldn't hear me as well as normally, so I had moved a couple of things to the side and I might have changed something. And I think I also might have adjusted the volume on something when I was doing something else and forgot to put it back. So I think I rectified it and I got everything straightened out for tonight's story. And okay, so you see my little thing I made to go around me. It's a radio, because today is actually World Radio Day. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And when I was reading about it, it astounded me to see that radio is still considered the most widely used form of information and entertainment in the world at this time. There's more people that get their messages or that they get their hear things that are tuned into the radio than anything else. And you know, I think that's kind of cool with the way things are. And oftentimes we're thinking of televisions or phones or whatnot and the visual, but to have radio still be something that is that big of a deal, I thought that was pretty cool. So it made me, when I was looking ahead and seeing that this was this today, it made me think of this book that I'm going to read tonight called Radio Man. And hi Julie. Nice to see you here. She's watching the game. Anyway, so the book Radio Man is by a gentleman named Arthur Dorris. And before I show you the book about Arthur, I have to show you this little guy. See this little tiny book? Along with the catalog that we did the other day, this little book alligator shoes. The words are backwards for you guys. Let me see if I can flip that so it's not backwards. Da, 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 da. Mirror it. Is it? There we go. Alligator shoes. Is probably, I got it at the same time I got the catalog. Arthur was doing a presentation at that summer school or that summertime that I taught. I did that, my internship, and the same time that Jasper Tompkins was there, Arthur came. And I spent the next several years always running into him at book signings and had him come to my school. Learned a lot about what he did, and he's just a really, really fascinating man. He and his wife lived here in Seattle, and I have several of his books. So a little bit about him. He always liked words, pictures, and books, and he started out eating a few. His family had a picture of him eating a book. Perhaps someone said, "Here, read this," and I misunderstood and thought they said, "Here, eat this." I knew nothing more about books than your little brother or sister, perhaps you did as a baby, but I was born a writer. And he said he was 4.5 when they first took one of their long trips, and they drove down the East Coast to Florida. And somewhere along the way, we passed an alligator farm. And my parents thought I would like to have my picture taken with the alligators. You can see the look on my face down here in this picture. That I noticed they had big teeth. I didn't particularly like the way they were smiling. So alligator shoes, I'm sure, came from that experience. And anyway, he's gone on, and his first book was called Pretzels, and I had that someplace, I don't know, it's been a long time. And then Abuela I have, an Isla, and they're both books that are done in English and Spanish, just like this one is. And Abuela being grandmother, and Isla is about the grandmother and the little grandchild and something on the island. He had another book out that I really, really liked that he and his wife did. It was set. It was done to raise money for a food bank that was, I believe, in Guatemala. Anyway, he's been working and drawing and doing things for years and years. And last I knew, he was still up here in the Northwest. But I'm going to show you just some of the things. His website is very cool. He has activities that help you teach kids how to write books. Author visits that he goes to the schools. But his books, there's Abuela and Abuelo. He has one now, and Alligator Shoes. Animal Tracks and Animals Talk. Animal Tracks I have in the other room. It's one of my grandson's favorites because it is all about the tracks that animals make, and it's a kind of a science-based book. Ant Cities is a great one. City Chicken, Elephant Animals. Several of them are books that were leveled like readers for kids to help them learn, but they had a really cool science-based follow the water from book to ocean, feel the wind. Isla is the one, the grandmother, and that Julio's Magic is another beautiful book. Magic Secrets, Mama and Me, Radio Man, Papa and Me, Numero Uno. Where's the one? Tango Tango, Rainforest Secrets I have back there too. Oh my gosh. Oh, Tonight is Carnival. So this is the one. This was a book that they did to illustrate with photographs of bright and lively aparillas, cloth art sewn by members of the Artisans Cooperative Club de Madres Virgen de Carmen of Lima. Terrible. I can read Spanish, but I'm really terrible on what it means. Anyway, it was this really cool book that went to raise money for these women that make these beautiful art. And that's all about this book. So, yeah. He says, growing up, I saw South America on a huge world map and had left covering one of the walls. At one point, I was traveling over the Andes in the back of a truck, bouncing along over dirt roads with potholes. And um, all this time and he came and as we rounded bends and passed by boulders, children would leap out and throw water balloons or shower us with icy water from buckets, a tradition at Carnival time. Then crossing the wide open altiplano, high plains, would drift sounds of small bands and musicians sometimes playing in the middle of the fields. It's such a beautiful, wonderful, fun book. Um, and it says the illustrations were done by a group of wonderful artisans who worked together to create the aparillas, cloth artwork, that were photographed for the book. And the people in the cooperative and others who helped with the project were incredible to work with. Their generosity and warmth were extended to many as the cooperative, using some of the proceeds from sales of their aparillas, ran a kitchen that fed up to 300 people a day. I just thought that was pretty amazing. It's in collaboration with Oxfam. So anyway, that's a completely separate thing. If I can find that book when it comes to Carnival time, I'll have to read that one. But this one that I'm going to read tonight is called Radio Man. And oh wow, it strikes pretty close to home for me growing up. I grew up in Eastern Washington. My dad owned apple orchards and apples, pears, cherries, apricots, peaches. We had, he was in business with my great uncles. We had several hundred acres of orchard from the lower valley in Eastern, down the Richland, Prosser, Tri-Cities area, all the way up to the upper valley, up where I lived. And so the way the crops are picked, all the way down in the lower valley toward Richland, is when they kind of it's even warmer and drier, and so they ripen sooner there. And so picking will start in the lower valley first, and then it will move up to the upper valley all the way through. And picking for the pears will start in early August, and then pears get done, and then in the upper valley, maybe toward the end of August, and then the picking for the apples can start almost right away in the lower valley again. So we had a family that came up every year to work for my dad and my great uncles, and Rosario and Santana and Rosario's brother David brought everyone. They lived in Sacramento, and they were migrant workers, and they worked all the things, and they brought their entire family, came up the coast, worked migrant. And when they got starting early in the year, because cherries are in the spring, and so there's a whole different kind of migrant to that. And so I can still remember in early August, right before pears started picking up, there would be carloads. They would come rolling into our driveway, and it was just wonderful because Rosario and Santana were there. And then I can remember when Santana had her baby Pablo, and I would get to play with him under the tree. And then I had kids to hang out with at this bus stop, and there was singing. You could hear the workers singing in the morning early on as I'm getting ready to go to the buses, and the kids are coming with me to the buses, but their families are already out picking and singing, and it was just amazing to see everybody coming together, and it was just a wonderful sense of the family that they had. And when Arthur came out with this book, Radio Man, it kind of, for me, it gave me a real connection about, because they were always singing, but they also always had radios and stuff out underneath the trees. And when we would bring, I would be picking. Even as a little kid, I drove tractor or would be setting ladders and stuff like that, and picking the bin tickets to people, to my dad and stuff. I'd do this after school, or my school that I went to, my school district, actually had apple picking vacation, because they knew none of the kids at the high school would come to school because you could make too much money in 2 weeks' time, and a lot of families needed it. So we started school really early, in like mid-August, so that we could take 2 weeks off during prime picking time. And I, as a ninth grader, I worked in the warehouses, and I made in 2 weeks' time, I think I made a ton of money for a ninth grader, because I was working in the packing houses and stuff and doing that. That's what we did. But Radio Man, I'll get back to it, quit babbling here, is a story that brought this whole sense of the families and the kids moving, because I would see these kids, they would come and they would be at school with me from the time school started in mid-August up until Halloween. And then I wouldn't see them again until the next year. And of course they would have grown, and different cousins would come in and whatnot. And so it was always just, I always wondered about them going from place to place and what it was like. Radio Man gave me a sense of that. And I hope that it can show you a little bit about that amazing community of people that are the backbone of the agriculture in this country that make things work. I mean, their whole families would come up. They weren't the only people my dad hired, but they, we would have. But he could employ a lot of pickers every day. And Rosario and Santana would come with their families and cousins, and yes, there may be about 30 people there, but Dad would go down every day down with his pickup to the unemployment, and anybody who wanted to work, he would load them up into the pickup or in the truck, and they would bring them up to work if they wanted to work. That was just what we could really employ a lot of people. But it was the families that had come each year that we depended on, because they were reliable to come to work every day for us. And it was really pretty amazing for my father. And to become friends with them in so many different ways, and to instill such a great respect that they had for each other. It was pretty amazing to see. So today's story is called Radio Man. And definitely unhappy since, yeah. So here's the book. Oops, I hadn't gotten it there. Radio Man. So Arthur also did all the illustrations in this book, and he does in most of his books. Now, the Spanish translation, I am not going to attempt to read. If I wanted the Spanish, it's on the back there. On that. And the book is written in English, and then with Spanish underneath, and you'll see. But a story in English and Spanish. Diego woke up to the sounds of a deep voice on the radio. Buenos dias, good morning. The words in Spanish and English echoed across the room. Esta es la voz de la frontera. This is the voice of the border. Good morning, Texans. ¿Estás listo? Asked Diego's grandfather, Abuelo. I'm ready, said Diego. Beep, beep. A truck's horn sounded outside. Diego's mother, father, and little sister, Alicia, were already waiting in the front seat of the truck. ¿Estás listo? Preguntó el abuelo de Diego. Estoy listo. Diego, Diego. Pip. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm starting to read the wrong part. I jumped down and started to read the Spanish. I will not do that again because I was thinking, what? Where's the translation? My goof. Beep, beep. A truck's horn sounded outside. Diego's mother, father, and little sister, Alicia, were already waiting in the front seat of the truck. Funny. Diego carried the radio and climbed into the truck. "Hey, Radio Man," called Diego's friend David. David called him Radio Man because Diego was always listening to the radio. "Can I ride with you today?" "Sí, vamos," said Papa, waving. "Yes, let's go," said Diego. "We won't see each other for a while. My family's leaving here tomorrow." "So is my family." Diego's family and David's family were migrant farm workers. They traveled most of each year to find work picking fruits and vegetables. This was the last day of cabbage picking. It was dusty and hot in the fields. The boxes of cabbages seemed heavy. "Como elefantes," said Abuelo. Diego and David thought the boxes were as heavy as elephants, too. While they rode back to the cabins, Diego tuned the radio to a station that played songs in Spanish. Everyone was tired from the work. "Canta," said Mama. Diego sang, and David tapped a rhythm on the side of the truck, and Mama helped Alicia clap hands in time to the music. The next morning, Diego and David said goodbye. They hoped they would see each other soon. Diego waved until David was out of sight. Diego and his family drove west over the mountains. "You're listening to KKTS, Cactus Radio, broadcasting from Tucson, Saguaro Cactus Land," said a man's voice on the radio that night. "This is the after sundown show, and I'm the night owl." Julie's Land. On highways, on narrow roads, and through small towns, the family drove from farm to farm, looking for work. "Hello, you've tuned to Bird Radio of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm talking to you from the banks of the Gila River." Then, when the radio voice got louder and louder, Diego knew they were getting closer to a town. At the melon farm where his family found work, Diego saw his cousins Sophie and Ernesto. Their family had also found work here. He hadn't seen these cousins in a long time. The three walked to school together every morning. When they went back to the fields after school, they looked for Gila monsters. Once David had told Diego about Gilas, but Diego had never seen one. "There's a Gila," said Diego on the last day of picking. "It looks like one of your dinosaurs, Ernesto," said Sophie. That night, there was a party with music and food and a piñata to celebrate the end of melon picking. "Bailemos," said Abuelo, and people danced to music from the radio. Sophie broke the piñata. "I didn't think you could run so fast," Diego said to Ernesto. "You look like you're being chased by Gilas," said Ernesto. The next day, Diego's family started the long drive to the cherry farms. It was hot in the truck during the day, so the family drove through the cool night. Diego was almost asleep, leaning against Abuelo. Let me get that a little larger for you. There we go. Leaning against Abuelo when Abuelo jiggled his arm. "Escucha," he said. Diego listened to crackling sounds coming from the radio, and Abuelo turned the radio slowly. "Buenas noches." The voice spoke only in Spanish. The songs were in Spanish, too. Abuelo heard one of his favorite songs, La Paloma. He told Diego that this station was far, far away in Mexico. Abuelo had listened to the same song in the village where he grew up. He told Diego about that village, about the forests where the butterflies looked like leaves on the trees, and about the houses shining in the moonlight. By dawn, the family was near Lodi, California. "Good morning, everyone," said the radio woman's voice. She played a song called "Stuck in Lodi Again." Diego had heard that song every summer when he and his family came to Lodi to pick cherries. But Diego never felt stuck in Lodi. He always met someone he knew. Maybe David would be here. Diego saw two boys that he had known at school in Arizona, but he did not find David. While he emptied buckets of cherries and took care of Alicia, Diego looked for his friend David. During all the days of cherry picking, he looked, but David did not arrive. "Today is the last day of cherry picking," the woman on the radio said. "It's been a great harvest this year." "Now we'll go north to new places," said Papa. Papa drove until fog swirled around the truck. Diego heard the ocean waves crashing. "Oh, you're listening to Big Radio in Crescent City, gateway to the giants," the radio man said. The giants were redwood trees. One tree had a tunnel big enough to drive through. "I'll tell David about this," said Diego. It's a bear. I don't think I'd ever seen that bear before. As many times as I've read this. The family drove through forests and through dry country, and they stopped at a roadside store to get something to drink and eat. A woman was looking at melons, trying to find a ripe one to buy. Diego wondered if those were the melons that he and his family had picked. He looked at the rows of fruits and vegetables. He knew how to pick them. Finally, the family reached orchards of trees so heavy with apples that the branches almost touched the ground. Diego had never been here before. "Ahora anuncios de KMPO Campo Radio Campesina de Sunnyside, Washington." Now, announcements from KMPO, Campo Farm Workers Radio from Sunnyside, Washington. The radio announcer gave a telephone number so that people could call in and give their messages. Diego turned up the volume. That would be Mount Adams, if you're in Sunnyside. Or it might have been before Mount St. Helens blew. That was probably Mount St. Helens. But yeah, if you're in Sunnyside, you would see Mount Adams and Mount St. Helens. Not far from where I grew up. "Paco, this is Lupe. Feliz cumpleaños. Happy birthday. Elena, your cousin called. She will arrive on Friday." Diego listened to the messages and to the KMPO telephone number again, and he ran to the telephone and he called the station. The announcer answered, "Buenos dias. Do you have a message?" Diego did have a message. "Hello, David. This is Diego. Are you here?" Diego heard his own voice on the radio. Someone was listening. And there's a glossary, and it shows the map going up to here. Somebody's there. There's the apple orchards and our mountains. Yep. It was really interesting because as a kid, I had heard about the radio messages just briefly, but it never really sunk in until I read this book and did a little more. And this was, I have no idea if they still do this or not. I don't know if KMPO is still in Sunnyside, but this was a way that the migrant workers had of connecting, and they had this ability to call into this radio station, and they would leave messages, and then the radio station was done in Spanish, and it was just pretty fabulous. I thought it was such a cool way to do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yay, Tucson! Yep, came through and kayaked. You kayaked on the Gila River? There's a great book out there. There was a Reading Rainbow book too called "When Gila Monsters Meet You at the Airport." It's about this little kid who grew up in New York, and he's moving to Arizona. LA touch. Oh, glorious! LA's got a touchdown. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. A nail biter game, is it? Yes. Well, there's always some missed calls. You're talking to a Seahawks fan. Talk about calls getting screwed up and teams losing out. Go back a few years to when the Seahawks. Yes. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. So anyway, this was a really, I just love this little, it's just, I love the way that sometimes you can find children's books that are done this way, that give a little slice of history about areas that people don't really know and don't understand. I mean, a lot of people, just you think about how the kids go from school to school, and how do they connect, and when are they going to see each other, and what are they going to do, and how that goes for them, but how the families stay connected and how they keep in touch. I thought this was, of course, now there's cell phones and whatnot, but this was all done pre-cell phone. But still, I think that radio, that connection, that messages to each other must have been pretty cool. You know, sitting, waiting, listening for a message, or hearing songs like things like that. It's pretty cool. And just to show how the farmers would move up in the map from all the way from Texas down here. Oops, yeah, came along, and everything that they did. Yeah. So there's another I mean, there's these are the Rocky Mountains. It's not showing the Cascade Mountains that we would see, but there's other groups that would come up because cherries are picked much earlier up in our area. So I love it. I just think it's great. He says Arthur Doris loves to travel and has traveled by car along the routes taken in this story. He first got the idea for the book when he heard radio station KNDA, which broadcasts in Spanish and English. And Mr. Doris is the author and illustrator of many children's books, and he lives in Washington State, where he has worked picking fruit with migrant farm workers. And his wife is an avid radio listener, grew up in Colombia, South America, and she moved to the U.S. in 1980 and teaches Spanish at the University of Washington. Now, I don't know if that's still true, because that's a fairly old picture. That's when I knew Arthur and his kids were little, because this book came out, let's see, he signed it for me in 1993. So that's a ways ago. Yeah, 93 was when it came out. Pre-cell phones. At least ones that you could carry, not bricks. Her house was... yes. Seahawks. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, you remember that? Great bycatch. Yes. Egg by the... Your mom's like Forrest Gump. Good. Yeah. It was a interesting time. I can remember, because I don't want to get political or anything, but there's been a long history of not treating migrant workers or immigrants in a lot of ways very well, in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that would happen in the apple picking or in the valleys is that immigration would come into the apple orchards, and if a worker didn't have their papers like on them right then that they were there, they oftentimes just were taken, boom, thrown in a truck, thrown in a car, and then everything that they had made was confiscated and they were driven off and taken and dropped off at the border. Whether or not, whatever your beliefs are, just the way they were treated was, as a child, and I can remember seeing this going, ugh. My father one time when I was young explained to me, he said, because Rosario and Santana were both citizens and their whole families were, and they came and, everybody was there. But, who knows if somebody a cousin came along with whatever. They came to work every day. They traveled. They were dependable. They were always there. So my dad told me when I was young, said, this is our property and they don't have immigration doesn't really have a right to come in here unless they come to the house first and let me know that they're here. They can't just barrel in, because they would literally barrel in the driveway down to our work cabins, and just, it was terrible. It was awful. and they had very distinct cars back there in the 60s. So they were kind of this awful kind of puke green, I'm going to say that. And so my dad said, if you see them coming, you can stop them and tell them they have to come to the front door first and talk to me. And I can remember being outside on the front, in my front yard, and the swing. And I'll get this picture just a second. Okay. Let me get the picture and show you this picture. Okay, so this is a picture of the house I grew up in. And this I took a long time ago. And as all our orchards were all orchards. So this driveway was really pretty long right down here. So the road was right, I was standing up on the road, had to go around here. And this was our home orchard with about 30 acres. And down, this is the garage. And then down below over here, what you can't see, there's like 8-10 work cabins that are the migrants that came and would live from early August through the end of October. So there was a swing here in the tree right there in our big box elder. And I saw the immigration cars coming around the thing. So it looks really bare because it's winter, but in harvest time, this is full out green, packed, so full and green you can't even see through, and there's completely apples everywhere and everything. So I hopped off the swing and went and stood in the middle of the driveway. And that car came roaring in the driveway and came right up to me. And they yelled at me and said, "Get out of the way, little girl." And I said, "My daddy says you have to go to our front door first and tell him you're here. You can't be here unless you go to our front door and tell him you're here." Well, about that time, my mom came scurrying out. And by that time, everybody who had been picking, and because they would come just when the workers were still out working like a later shift, a different thing, had managed to all go grab their papers and all that kind of stuff, so everything was fine. But I can still remember doing that, and I'm just always those kind of things have a way of sticking with you. And then when you grow up older and you're driving into school and you're following a truck bus that's got locks and bars, and you know what they've done, and ooh boy, yeah, have a hard time with that. Just have a whole hard time with that whole division. Yeah. So Thank you, Julie. Yeah, my dad was very firm about it. It was just that didn't have any right to come into our property. They had to come legally. They had to come. I wasn't going to, that no, we hired people legally as best we could, but still they were on our property and they were under his protection, and that was the way it was going to be. And nobody could come, just like he would protect us. Nobody could come. Yeah, you. They talk about going out on a date with for guys who came out on a date with us. We had a date and they met my dad. Oof, man, if they were in the living room, if we had a date and our date had come into the house, and my mom would be helping us get ready for a date, and she would like scurry down to try to get to the living room, and if we were like, Mom, I still need real, because the deal was if my dad let a date into the house and that date was sitting down and my mom would walk in the room, if that date didn't stand when my mom walked in, that was the last date we ever had with that young man. Because if he couldn't respect my mother walking into the room, he wasn't welcome to date our daughter, my dad's daughters. He never really said anything. Wasn't very, but he was just pretty firm. No, yeah. Yeah, Dad's was you could say he was a conservative liberal. Yes, very, my land, I'll hire who I want. And and the thing was, literally, he would go down to the unemployment line every day, hire anybody who wanted to come work too, and hire them too. Same thing. He man, woman, child. I mean, we got my great uncles paid me the same wage working in the warehouse making boxes that an adult man would get paid who is new to the job too. Like, so say there was somebody coming in to do box making and didn't know what he was doing, and I had done it, and Uncle Ed had taught me, we got paid the same. It didn't matter that I was female or much younger. It was a job. You got paid on the job. Now, if there was somebody that was more experienced, they obviously got more. And picking apples was, so if you know what a bin of apples looks like, how big they are, and this is before the espalier and loaf trees, so big, huge trees. If you know what a bin of apples is, it holds 25 boxes of apples in one bin. They're huge. I could maybe, on a good day, focused maybe, which I wasn't a very good picker, maybe pick 5 bins if I worked my tail off. Rosario, David's wife, could pick 14 bins a day and still watch Pablo underneath the tree, her baby. Rosario and David were brothers, and they could pick between 17 and 18 bins a day easily. Yeah, you get experience. And then, of course, if they're golden delicious, they had to be picked much more carefully because they bruise. So there were only certain people that my dad would let pick the goldens because they had to be handled very differently. It's not so much cutting the stem. It's you don't cut. You know how to twist it so that it breaks it off right, and that it doesn't. Look at me. I'm still doing that like a kid. You know how to tip them and then set them in your picking bag, and so that it snaps the stem at the right spot and doesn't break it out of the core, because the stem broken off there, then they don't hold up well in cold storage. Pears are picked hard because but yeah, they're the whole thing too. Yep. So, thank you. Anyway, you guys, thank you for listening to the story. It's always wonderful to find stories in your in your heritage. Yeah, Golden Delicious are so good in your heritage, and remember that bring little things out and things that bring memories out, but also help you to understand more about the culture around you and that came through your life. Um, because it was a culture that became part of me and really made a big part of who I am today. And I'm very grateful for being able to understand and learn or be exposed and learn a little bit about such a fabulous type of ways and different things, and then to understand a little bit more about the life that they would I mean they would leave their homes in Sacramento for most of the year to come up and run the circuit, to do I mean to start that migrant thing. And so, oh yeah, yeah, the colors are so brilliant. They're just so well done. And the skies, I love how it shows the different areas and it's, you know, what they look like. And yeah, the apple trees. Yep, that's what apple trees look like when they're full. There are a lot of apples on them. And this one, this was very much so like the work cabins that we had at our house. But and you know, it was one of those things. Those were we painted them every other year, and it was getting them ready because they sat empty for most of the year except from August through the rest of the time, um, through the end of beginning of November, and then as soon as the snow came though, everybody would leave. Bye, the snow's here. We're heading back. We got to head south. So that would happen, and then it would be winter and it would be really cold, so we couldn't get into the cabins to really do the maintenance and everything. So Dad would shut off all the water and all that stuff and take care of that in the shower rooms and all the bathrooms, and we'd get the basic stuff all cleaned out, and then we wait until spring. And then in spring, my sisters and I ended up having a job because it was time to get the cabins ready, time to clean them up and scrub them out and do any painting and anything that needed to be done. And that was part of working on the farm. You maintained the cabins. It was great. Oh, we didn't grow Granny Smith. Gloria likes, yeah, the Granny Smiths we didn't grow. And Red Delicious we grew because they are what? Red Delicious were not necessarily a natural apple variety. They were a crossbreed of different kinds that were developed because, if you ever know that little Washington apple emblem you see, my dad helped design that little Washington apple for the Washington Apple Commission. And he was on the first Washington Apple Commission there was. And that whole bit with the Red Delicious, it was an apple that, unfortunately, they sacrificed taste in the development of it for longevity. It could hold up in through cold storage and through controlled atmosphere. So it could be picked in October and still be able to be sold in April when it came out of controlled atmosphere, and it would hold up. Golden Delicious don't hold up like that. Other kinds don't hold up like that. And so that was one of the ones that was there. Now they have a whole different kind of varieties, and it's gone really crazy of all the different kinds now. And so apples great. Oh yeah, we trailers and campers. Most of the migrant workers that are the farmers in the Yakima Valley, a lot of them had at that time when I was growing up had work cabins on the farms because we had consistency with certain families coming up, and so the families that came to see us knew that they could not only work for us, but they would work for my great uncles, and we had a lot of acres between my dad's and my great uncles to do that. So other families had the same type of setup. Recently, what they've done now is like last year or 2 years ago, well, during COVID, they had something. They ended up having to rent out like motels or entire floors in order to get enough workers to come in to be able to stay places and to have things. They've had to do that in the past because they've had such a shortage. So, yeah. Hey, Nathan, that was a great pour. Nice to have you here, buddy. Um, it was a good job last night. I loved it. I thought it was so pretty, really cool. And you know what? Batteries die all the time. Seriously. That's why I have dummy batteries in my cameras here for this, because if I'm going out shooting photographs, I have on my Canons, I think I have 5 Canon batteries. And my Canons all use the same kind of batteries, and that's one of the reasons. And boy, it's and I do that because I've run out of battery before, so I kind of obsessed with that. But batteries fail, they always do. But dummy batteries are my favorite things. They plug in. Anyway, yes, it was a really good pour. Honeycrisp, yes, Honeycrisps are amazing. They are only come out at a certain time, and they're only grown in certain areas and in certain in the terrain and the weather that terrain gets has to be of a certain kind, because what it does is it where they're grown, the temperature drops suddenly and then comes right back. It does this huge kind of change in temperature, and so it brings the sugar up and really fast, so it makes them really sweet. But their growing season is really short. So yes, that's always a good idea to have it in case the battery. I have what's nice about using ecamm is that it can plug right. I can plug an old iPhone in if I need to, and it can pick it up. And my iPad, I have an old iPad that's been hanging around. It's up there, and an old phone hanging around, and they're both plugged in so that if anything went kablooey, I could turn either of those on and it would pick them right up, which is nice. But I would also probably mutter a lot before I realized I could do that. So, yep. Oh, Nathan, I am so sorry that you're in so much pain today. That is not pleasant at all. We're all going to send you positive healing vibes. Gloria's sending it on the best. We're just going to send it on the back of Gloria's positive energy that she's sending, I'm sure. Yeah. 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 You put a lot of energy into that last night, Nathan, and I'm just saying that you probably put a lot of nervous energy. Let me get my radio back here so I'm not talking through the book. Where did it go? Oh, there I am. You probably expended a lot of nervous energy before you did that live. You do so well on camera. And or stay well, anyway, you just do so well. So we all love you. don't I mean, I know I can say this, but there's no reason to hold in that nervousness and whatnot. Just let it go. Just let it flow. you're doing a great job. It's pretty amazing. And it's fun. It's meant to be fun. So just hopefully you can relax, take a deep breath, breathe out all the pain. I know tonight I'm going to go crawl in a hot tub because I ate things I shouldn't have. Today, you know, Super Bowl, I ate cheese, which I shouldn't eat, and I ate some other stuff that I shouldn't have, and my muscle joints are going to be sore. So I'm going to crawl in the hot tub before I go to bed. And will help with that. And your music is, oh yes, he is so good. So good. So, Radio Man, my little radio there, all the transistors and stuff like that. It is one of those things that I really enjoyed listening, doing this, and telling you this story, sharing a little bit about my history and about this little portion of history of us here in the United States. And I'm sure the agriculture community in Australia has a similar type of migrant worker populations. I wonder, that would be really interesting to look at, to see, to compare those. That would be an interesting thing to see, this and that. Anyway, so that's the story for tonight. And I've been babbling for nearly an hour. Oh my gosh. So, but it was fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. And my one little glitch where I jumped in and started to read in Spanish instead of in English, that was pretty funny. Yep, but this is live. And you know what? I'm not going to take the time to go back and edit that out. I'm just going to leave it out there. It's going to stay on the video all in YouTube land for however long it is. And that's the way it's going to be, because we're going to keep it real. Keepin' it real. And that's what I do here on this channel for you guys and for myself, keeping me up front and doing what I like to do. Today, after editing a bunch of moving photos around, it was fun to be able to open a book and just read a little bit. I also did some sketching today. You guys have gotten me sketching, which is kind of a crazy thing too. I'll share some of those on another night. And tomorrow is Valentine's, and I have a very non-traditional Valentine's kind of story to read tomorrow night called Each Kindness. And it is, it's a beautiful book, but one that, yeah, it's just stuck with me for a long, long time since I first read it. So until tomorrow night, everybody, and I hope you can join me then. But until then, let's dance this party out. Let's send Nathan some good vibes, and everybody else good vibes to each other, because, you know, just think about, I loved hearing all Nathan's live last night, because I love putting a voice to the face that I see in the little thumbnail. And all you guys, I like to go back and watch your things because I like to put a voice to the thumbnail. And so let's send everybody, each other, good vibes, and keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. And until next time, dance it out.
In the heat of the night, we could get lost in all the lights and sounds. Feeling alright, we won't go home, we will just stay here downtown. There's not just stars on the boulevard, they're in the
Shanice. Hi.